This full moon in Aquarius is a rebirth and a revelation. There's a lot of support available for metamorphosis, for transformation, for visibility, and also we're called upon to be discerning about how we negotiate power and how we negotiate our visibility. So stay tuned for your rising sign at the end of the video, and let's get into this full moon. The full moon's in Aquarius. It's conjunct Pluto. That means it's sitting together with the god of the underworld. And the god of the underworld, Pluto, wears a cap of invisibility when he surfaces into the world above. So he has to do with revealing and veiling, and when and where we show ourselves and why. And that theme of veiling and revealing is brought forward by the sun in Leo. That's exactly opposing this full moon, and that's illuminating Pluto's realm. That's illuminating the underworld realm, which is where power and generative forces live. And the sun in Leo is conjunct Jupiter, also in Leo. And this is true for a longer season than this full moon, but this full moon really brings it forth. And it starts eclipse season, which begins in August. And eclipses are also these moments of revelation, of revealing, of doors opening between the worlds. Think of Pluto also, the way that Pluto opens up the earth and brings Persephone down into the underworld with him. Persephone being life itself. She is the flowers, but this is how the life regenerates itself. Aquarius has to do with the collective. It's an air element sign, so it's the mind, it's collective mind. It's our vision for the future, and it is how we fit into the group. And this is also opposing Leo, which is about our personal experience, our personal heart, our personal creativity. So there's tension and there's dynamic generative energy between the sun and the moon. Always when we have a full moon, the sun and the moon are always opposite each other. And then this opposition between Pluto, the god of the underworld, and Jupiter, the god of the sky. And so there's this vastness to this full moon. And there's this opportunity for opening up and for something within you that your soul is wanting to be seen, to be heard, this generative, creative, vibrant energy that maybe has been kept in the unconscious, the subconscious, in the basement, so to speak. There's something that's wanting to come out and be seen, and that's crucial for you to own in order to have the kind of future that you would like to make possible for yourself and to fully own your power. Moon conjunct Pluto is very deep. It's felt energy. So even though it's in Aquarius, it's felt. Pluto isn't negotiated with through logic. Pluto is negotiated with through experience, and through metamorphosis, and through going deep. And whether we're aware of it or not, we're always negotiating power. In any of our relationships, our relationship to ourselves, to other people, with the world around us, with life, with death, we are always negotiating power. And that doesn't mean power over other people. It doesn't mean to be who's dominant and who has to lose and who gets to win. It's about how we're relating to power and where we are, how we're directing it, to what we're directing it. Are we directing our power in alignment with what we value, with our well-being, with something larger than ourselves, larger than our own ego that empowers us as we empower it? These are some of the questions that a Moon-Pluto conjunction in Aquarius can have us exploring a bit. Jupiter and the Sun in Leo are asking us to really own our creative life force and to give us the courage to self-disclose in ways that are also aligned with our discernment and that are prompted by the desire of our soul. What is our soul here to experience in this incarnation? What do we want to express that is meaningful, that feels expansive? What is it that makes us feel creative and in flow rather than contracted and burdened? One of the things that this full moon may be calling into awareness is how much of my power do I give away to the collective through algorithms, through news cycles, through things that are beyond my control, and where am I allowing my attention to go to things that are hijacking my energy and my center of power? The Sun in Leo is our generative life force, our solar plexus energy center, and our seat of will and sovereignty. And Jupiter is saying, expand. Feel into what makes that feel expanded and warm and powerful, and what makes that feel contracted and cold and hopeless. Pluto can give us our greatest riches or really drag us down into the depths of despair. Whenever Pluto arrives, there's something to claim and there's something to change. And Pluto always, as the eclipses do that are coming up in August, always brings forth something maybe that was invisible, and Pluto shows us like what we might not be aware of and yet is driving the bus, so to speak. Now, there's a lot of support available for this metamorphosis in this configuration of blue lines that forms this basket. And these are kind of all the heavy hitters: Uranus in Gemini and Neptune in Aries and Pluto, of course, in Aquarius and Jupiter in Leo, all in agreement, except for this opposition that we just spoke about. That's where the dynamic tension is, and that's the irritation that creates the pearl. Yeah? And then these harmonious aspects that these other planets are creating, they give us support and flow. And so there's a container for this metamorphosis that you're going through with this full moon. And this ingress into eclipse season where many doors will be opened and many doors will close, right? So things are never the same after eclipses in the area of the chart where the eclipses happen for you. And you can find out more about how these planets are affecting you individually, getting a reading with me. But there are major transpersonal, which it means beyond the personal, so the collective, metamorphoses happening, and those energies are also supporting us personally as we move from one phase to another, transform to cross-form, like the Plutonian symbol of the butterfly, when the caterpillar becomes the butterfly. So there is this potential change from the caterpillar, who does what caterpillars do, to the butterfly who can take flight in the air element, which is Aquarius. That's the element of air. So there are a number of forces coming together to facilitate change in an easeful, flowing direction. It's in the air and fire elements, all of these planets that I mentioned earlier in this basket formation. So it has to do with the yang element or the yang modality. So it's about outgoing, action-oriented, external, again, sort of modality. Now we have Venus in Virgo, and she is the priestess. She's the yogini. She is discerning, and she is the ancient divine feminine. Aphrodite, Venus, existed before the Olympians, and she emerged from the sea after an epic battle between the sky god Uranus and our earthly ancestor god Saturn. A very dramatic, messy story, and yet she is the goddess of love and beauty and attraction and magnetism and all the reasons why one being is attracted to another, and this is what generates life. In astrology, she represents what we value and what we find beautiful and what really matters to us, like what makes life worth living. So in Virgo, she has to do with devotion to what we value and what feels correct and in integrity in our nervous system. Virgo is Mercury ruled, so it has to do with the nervous system, the physicality of our nervous system. And she is doing accounts. She is doing the admin on where we are focusing our power. She's asking us to look at the daily practices that we do. Are we attending to the altars of our true values? Or are we scattered? She's in a square, which is a tense and dynamic aspect with her lover, who is Mars, and he's in Gemini. And he is newly awakened after having a conjunction with Uranus earlier in the month. And he's ready to get out there and get involved in everything. And he's curious about all the different things and could be scattered, but is also very powerful in Gemini and very much the magician, able to look at all the different sort of perspectives and take them all into account. He's sort of a gatherer and disseminator of information, but he can kind of, again, get scattered, and then Venus is in the square. They're both in Mercury signs, right? Gemini is also ruled by Mercury. So this has a lot to do with the mind and where we're putting our mental energy. And can we honor both? Can we tolerate that the two of them are in friction right now? Again, this is the friction that creates the pearl. And it's also Venus and Mars in tension with each other is Eros. And Eros is part of what creates the world. It's life force. It's attraction. And attraction is also sometimes part combative, right? So we have this dynamic between the two of them. And through this generative friction, we're having to kind of come to some sort of agreement about discernment, devotion, staying self-possessed, staying centered, Venus in Virgo, and also allowing for curiosity, doing the networking, and staying excited about things and open to possibilities. So they're doing this kind of dance with each other at this full moon, and it's almost an exact aspect. So it's a very potent aspect as well. So we have a lot of exact aspects in this full moon, which tells me that there's a lot of power here. And this is a significant full moon. It's a full moon to be approached with as much self-honesty as we can muster, with creativity and openness to possibilities, and also self-possession and self-ownership. Now, the last bit I want to speak about before moving on to the rising signs is that Chiron is in a square from Taurus with the full moon, and also with Pluto and with Jupiter. And Chiron is the wounded healer. And when we have Chiron strongly aspected, we know that there is an aspect of the pain body present. And this is a term used by Eckhart Tolle to describe this sort of body, energetic body that we go around with, that contains all the ways that we've had trauma or loss, and it can kind of get activated. And we know when it's activated because that's when we say crazy stuff. And we say stuff like, you always, you never, I always, I never, things like that. And the pain body speaks to us when we are being called on to heal as well, right? It's not just punitive. It's not just, oh, how unfortunate, right? It's kind of akin to what Pluto does for us, in that Pluto brings us down to the underworld so that we can attend to things in a way like soul retrieval, where we can remember, put back together the parts of our soul that maybe we repressed or pushed downward for survival at some point. And that bringing it back into wholeness is part of the riches that Pluto offers when we're willing to be courageous, that Leo arm of this T-square, and we're willing to invest in the empowerment of our future, Aquarius. Chiron in Taurus is very much an embodied placement, and it's really pointing at the ways that we relate to our physicality, whether or not we are able to honor what our bodies are saying to us all the time, in real time, the ways that we are able to connect to our full power when we're fully present in real time with our physicality. We often think our egos and our minds want us to believe that the more that we suppress our bodies and our physical, what we feel and all the things, that's how we attain power, by going out and grasping and getting and arguing and producing and, etc. But Chiron's this reminder that actually we make the better, more efficient decisions. And Venus and Virgo's in the background like, yep. When we're able to be present, and when we regularly connect with what we're actually feeling. And when we remember also that we are connected to and part of a fabric of consciousness, that the Earth's consciousness doesn't only emerge in the human, it is everywhere. And all other living beings are kin, like for real. That's not just something to say to feel good. That's a thing. Intelligence doesn't just look like thinking. It looks like feeling. It looks like interpersonal relationships, the space between us, and what we experience through being around each other in physical presence, not just online interactions. It shows up in creative endeavors and how we bring in our experiential, knowing into what we do and how we know things. So Pluto in Aquarius is really transforming our sense of knowing and sort of how we perceive our ways of knowing. There's literally a book written about this called Ways of Knowing by James Bridle that I highly recommend, that speaks to our not just our interconnectedness, but our continuousness with all of life. That we're not so separate. Of course we're not. Like once you grasp that, you realize just how much that's true and how crazy it is to see ourselves as separate or better than all the other intelligence that's here. So part of your self-ownership can be an inquiry into, what are my ways of knowing? How do I know things? Does that come to me in ways that are more than just the ways I've been told I'm to know things? We're going to move on to the individual rising signs and how this full moon in Aquarius will affect you. If you have Aries rising, the full moon in Aquarius falls in your 11th house. This is the house of groups and friendships and the networks you belong to. It's also your visions. So your vision for the future and your vision for the world and how you participate in creating that vision with other people. It's a house of co-creation. So the full moon, along with Pluto, shows you where you actually stand in a group that you're a part of and what it costs you or gives you to be there. And so the moon's message for you is, what is your place in this group worth to you? And is your energy being returned? Are you ready to put your power behind your vision? If you have Taurus rising, the full moon in Aquarius with Pluto falls in your 10th house. And this is the house of career, your calling, think vocal, vocation, public standing, and what you're known for, so your reputation. And this full moon brings into focus your position in your work or how you're seen in the world and the power that runs through this placement. So the moon asks, how much are you willing to transform in order to answer your calling? And how much of you does your public role require? And what might stay private? If you have Gemini rising, the moon in Aquarius falls into your 9th house. And this is the house of belief, higher learning, travel, and the larger meaning in your life. So it is also wisdom and places where information and knowledge live, like libraries and places of higher learning. So this is where the moon illuminates things and also inquires into your relationship to your power. This full moon shows you where your convictions are being tested and where they've shifted and what you actually believe. And so the moon asks, which of your beliefs are truly yours and which ones were handed to you? What beliefs are you willing to transform to call greater power down? If you have Cancer rising, the full moon in Aquarius falls in your 8th house, and this is the house of shared resources, mysteries, other people's money, intimacy, and what you merge with. And this is Pluto's native domain. So Pluto's very comfortable in this house and really wants to show you how you relate to your power. So this full moon brings clarity about shared arrangements, what you've put in and what you're getting back. So the moon asks, what have you given here? And does what you receive match it? Are you willing to transform in order to claim your power? If you have Leo rising, the full moon in Aquarius with Pluto falls in your 7th house. And this is the house of partnership, close others, the people you meet one-to-one. So it's the house of the other. It's also the house of marriage and partnerships in general. This is a very potent place to have this full moon because it's an angular house, and angular houses usually have a stronger impact. So the full moon illuminates the balance of power in a significant relationship. The moon asks, where does the power sit between you and the other? And is this arrangement one that you chose? Are you willing to transform your one-on-one relationships in order to claim the best future? If you have Virgo rising, the full moon's in Aquarius with Pluto, and it falls in your 6th house, and this is kind of your native territory. In modern astrology, the 6th house and Virgo correspond. So the 6th house is the house of work, daily routine, your health, your body, the accounts that you keep, and the way that you do things moment to moment. So it's the details that make up an entire life, right? So the moments that make up a life. And this full moon is showing you what your daily life is actually doing to you, what it takes and what it sustains. So the moon asks, what does your daily routine ask of your body? And is it giving back enough to continue? Are you willing to transform something about what you do day to day in order to claim your power? If you have Libra rising, the full moon in Aquarius falls in your 5th house. And this is the house of creativity, of pleasure, of children, of what you make, for its own sake. So just for joy, what you do for joy, risk-taking also, and your creativity, what you create from your heart and from your more playful side. So the full moon brings into focus what you create and where you seek joy. And under this very creative influence, the moon asks, what wants to come through you? And are you willing to claim it as yours? Are you willing to create something that connects to your vision, but also might transform you in the making? If you have Scorpio rising, you're in your native territory with Pluto being your ruling planet, conjunct this full moon in Aquarius, which falls in your 4th house. And this is the house of home, of family, roots, and where you come from. This full moon illuminates your foundation and your private life and the ground that you stand on and your ancestry. And the moon asks, where did the power sit in the home you came from? And where does it sit in the one you live in now? Are you willing to move toward the vision you have for your home? And are you willing to let that transform you? If you have Sagittarius rising, the full moon in Aquarius, along with Pluto, falls into your 3rd house, and this is the house of communication, neighbors, siblings, and your immediate environment. So this full moon illuminates the power that moves through your words, how you're thinking, the power of your mind, and the way that power comes through your daily exchanges. So the moon asks, where might it serve you to say the things that you have not said yet? And where might it serve you to be more discerning in your daily life? What does what you say and what you do not say reveal about your relationship to your power? If you have Capricorn rising, the full moon in Aquarius falls in your 2nd house. So this is the house of money, possessions, what you value, and what your resources are, like what you have to work with and the energy units you have to spend in the world so that you can get the things that you want for yourself. This house also has to do with your self-worth. So the full moon brings into focus your resources and that sense of self-worth that you carry. And the moon asks, what do you actually value? And does the way you spend your money and time reflect that? If you fully owned your vision for your greater financial well-being, what would have to transform? If you have Aquarius rising, this full moon falls into your first house, which is an angular house and a very important place for this full moon to fall in. So this is kind of about you and how you think of yourself, how you present in the world, your physical presentation, and the way that you just meet the world and the way that the world meets you. So it's kind of that window, that kind of interface. And this full moon illuminates you and how you appear and how much of you is visible and how much you hold back from visibility. And there's lots of reasons that we do that. Some of them can be really constructive, some are not. So the moon asks, how much of yourself are you showing and how much are you keeping for yourself alone? And are you aware of why? Who are you becoming? And are you willing to be seen as that? If you have Pisces rising, the full moon in Aquarius falls in your 12th house along with Pluto. They come together, and this is the house of solitude, the hidden, dreams, what lives beneath awareness. So it's kind of backstage, it's the green room, it's the unwitnessed parts of your life. And so the full moon shows you what's been operating maybe out of your own sight as well as out of the sight of other people, and what is going on in your unconscious, in the dream realm. So every night our psyches work out our energy field in our dreams through all kinds of symbolic language, the language of the underworld, which is Pluto's realm. And as a Pisces, this 12th house area is kind of your area of expertise. And it's also the area where a transformation is occurring with this full moon. So the moon asks you, through the realm of dream, what have you kept hidden, even from yourself? And what would it change to see it directly? Can you honor your intuitive ways of knowing? And what would transform if you did so fully? Happy full moon, my friends. Until next time, take care.